You walked into the supermarket for one thing: milk, just milk. An hour later, you walked out with a full cart, a lighter wallet, and the feeling that you chose to buy all of it. But did you really? Over the next 15 minutes, you're going to find out that the aisle you wandered through without thinking, the music you never noticed, the smell of fresh bread that made you smile, none of it was an accident. Every inch of that store was designed, tested, and perfected over decades by psychologists, architects, and behavioral scientists with a single goal: to get you to spend more than you planned. You'll see how an empty cart can quietly manipulate your brain, why milk is almost never near the entrance, what a price ending in 0.99 actually does inside your head, and why, even knowing all of this, you'll still fall for it if you don't change one simple thing. After this video, you will never walk into a supermarket the same way again. Let's start at the beginning. The modern supermarket wasn't born as a place to shop. It was born as a laboratory. Starting in the mid-20th century, chains like Piggly Wiggly, and later, giants like Walmart, Carrefour, and Tesco began hiring consumer psychologists to answer one simple question: what makes a person, without realizing it, buy more than they need? The answer wasn't in advertising or aggressive discounts. It was in something far more subtle: the design of the space itself. Because it turns out that around 85% of in-store purchasing decisions are made unconsciously, according to neuromarketing research cited by Harvard's Gerald Zaltman. In other words, your brain decides before you even realize you're deciding. And that's where it all begins. Think about something you probably never questioned. Why are milk, eggs, and bread the things almost everyone comes in for, almost always, tucked into the farthest corner of the store? That's not a logistics mistake. It's a strategy the industry calls the forced path. If those staples sat right by the entrance, you'd grab them and be out in 3 minutes. But if they're at the back, you're forced to cross dozens of aisles, packed with products that were never on your list. Every aisle you cross is another sales opportunity. Every shelf you pass is a silent advertisement. And repeated exposure, according to consumer psychology research, directly increases the likelihood of an impulse buy. The more you see a product, the more familiar it feels. And familiar to your brain feels safe. And what feels safe gets bought. But the layout is just the stage. What actually pulls you in is something you're breathing. Ever notice that almost every large supermarket has its bakery near the entrance? That's not a coincidence. It's one of the most powerful tools in sensory marketing. The smell of freshly baked bread triggers an almost instant response in your brain. It makes you hungry, even if you just ate. And a hungry shopper, according to research from Cornell University, led by Brian Wansink, tends to buy between 10 and 25% more food than they actually need. Smell is the only sense wired directly into the limbic system, the part of the brain responsible for emotion and memory. That's why a single scent can transport you to a memory in less than a second. Supermarkets know this. Some even pump artificial bread or coffee scent into areas where there's no real bakery or cafe at all. Your nose thinks there's fresh food nearby. Your wallet responds. And if smell primes you, sound finishes the job. Pay attention next time you shop. The music is never random. Classic studies in environmental psychology, like the ones from researcher Ronald Milliman back in the 1980s, found something striking. When in-store music is slow, shoppers walk slower, stay longer, and spend more money. In some experiments, that difference reached up to 38% more in sales, just from changing the tempo of the songs playing overhead. Fast music, on the other hand, gets used during busy hours to speed people up and avoid crowding. It's a silent lever, controlling your pace, your mood, and without you noticing, how much you end up spending. But there's still another layer, because they don't just control what you smell and what you hear, they control what you see, literally, with light. Look at the produce section. The lighting there tends to be warm and intense, designed to make colors pop and everything look fresher than it actually is. In the meat department, the lighting often shifts toward reddish tones, specifically chosen to make meat look more appetizing. In the bakery, golden light that mimics warmth, as if the bread just came out of the oven. And in electronics or cosmetics, the lighting flips completely. Bright, white, almost clinical, meant to signal technology, cleanliness, and precision. Every section has its own engineered atmosphere, built to trigger a specific emotion. And emotions, not logic, are what open your wallet. Now let's look up, literally. There's a phrase that sums up one of the most profitable strategies in all of retail. Eye level is buy level. The shelves positioned right at your eye line are the most expensive real estate in the entire store. Big brands pay enormous sums to occupy that exact space because they know that's where your gaze lands first, almost effortlessly. Cheaper products, often the store's own private label, tend to sit on the lowest shelves, the ones you have to bend down to see. And products aimed at kids sit conveniently at a child's eye level, not an adult's. None of this is accidental. It's commercial geometry, calculated down to the inch. And once a product is right in front of your eyes, one of the most famous psychological tricks in retail kicks in: the price tag. Why does almost everything end in 0.99? Because your brain, according to research from the University of Chicago and MIT, reads prices from left to right and gives disproportionate weight to the very first digit it sees. It's called the left digit effect. A price of $9.99 registers almost instinctively as belonging to the $9 category, not the $10 one. Even though the real difference is a single cent, your brain files it away as noticeably cheaper. That tiny adjustment, repeated across thousands of products, adds up to a massive difference in a chain's total profits over a year. Here's something even stranger. Some consumer behavior studies found that prices printed in smaller font are unconsciously perceived as cheaper than the exact same price printed in a larger font. The physical size of a number, without you ever consciously linking it to money, is speaking to your brain too. And there's another detail almost nobody notices: the order in which prices appear on a shelf. When a store places an expensive item first with a cheaper one right next to it, that second product suddenly feels like a bargain. Even if you'd consider it pricey in any other context, it's called the contrast effect, and it works even when you already know it's being done to you. But price is just the opening move. Let's talk about deals. Because deals are, arguably, the most sophisticated form of psychological manipulation inside a store. Buy one, get one free. The last day sign, the limited edition. The giant banner screaming special discount over a price that, in plenty of cases, didn't actually drop by much. All of these lean on two mental triggers extensively studied in behavioral psychology: scarcity and urgency. When something seems limited in time or quantity, your brain sounds an alarm that says, if you don't buy this now, you lose it. And that feeling of loss, according to the loss aversion theory from Nobel Prize-winning psychologist Daniel Kahneman, weighs almost twice as heavily on your mind as the possibility of an equivalent gain. Then there's price anchoring, showing you a high price crossed out first, with the real, lower price right beside it. Even if that original price was never actually charged, your brain is already anchored to that reference point, and everything else suddenly looks like a steal. Market research in the United States found that signs simply displaying the word sale boost a product's sales even when the price hasn't changed at all. The word alone, printed on a yellow or red tag, is enough to trigger urgency. There doesn't need to be a real discount. Your brain just needs to believe there is one, which raises an uncomfortable question. How many times have you bought something because it was on sale, when you never would have looked for it twice without that tag? And while your mind is busy processing all of that, there's a physical object quietly working against you the whole time: the cart. The first shopping carts, invented in 1937 by Sylvan Goldman, were considerably smaller than today's. Over the decades, they kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Why? Because of a simple psychological phenomenon. A half-empty cart creates an uncomfortable feeling that you still need to buy more. A full cart, on the other hand, triggers a false sense of accomplishment, as if you'd just completed a thorough, successful shop. By supersizing the cart without you noticing, stores rewired your sense of what enough looks like. Research on cart size has shown purchase increases of up to 40% simply from doubling their visual capacity. You've made it through the whole store. You've picked your products. You'd think the psychological part is over. It isn't. There's one last trap waiting: checkout. After winding through aisles, comparing prices, and making dozens of tiny decisions, your mind arrives at the register already worn down. Psychologists call this decision fatigue, extensively studied by social psycho.